sort of like doing scientific research by press releases in an attempt to defend, as a sort of a last resort, a dying paradigm in physics.
I don't know what more one can do than the data are there, they've been got, we have to make sense of it.
I think in one sense they think it's bad to, quote, confuse, unquote, the public. Because if you believe in the standard paradigm with all your heart, you know it can't be real. I know it can't be real. You know, if I try to be at all rational within the context of the current Big Bang ideology.
So if you have a cosmological theory that actually starts somewhere. I mean, I knew this when I was 10 years old, I think. I was sitting out in the backyard swinging with my brother, thinking about what would the edge of the universe look like if we got to the edge of the universe. And we both of us realized, even at that age, that the notion was somehow did not make sense. The universe can't have an edge, and it can't have a beginning. Because if it had an edge, there'd have to be something on the other side, right? And if there had a beginning, there'd have to be something on the other side of that. And somehow, cosmology, a satisfying philosophical cosmology to me, would have to start with that notion that it was always this way, and it always will be this way. There's all kinds of things happening in there, but somehow the basic laws of nature are such that this exists.
Of course, this is astrophysics, this is science, and everything can be refuted. You have an explanation, you can produce an opposite explanation, so not everything is not so simple.
The theoreticians ought to be really looking at this theoretical problem, and the observers ought to be gathering much more data of the sort that we get. But I think they're all a little scared because it's an unpopular subject. They're worried about their jobs, and they're worried about getting moving on up the ladder. You know, if they're postdocs.
A young person in academia cannot afford to go against the Big Bang. He'd immediately lose his position, tenure.
Tenure, yeah.
As I said last night. And so there is this difficulty. You can't expect them to do that.
Don't collaborate with Chip Art, or don't collaborate with Geoffrey, because if you do that, you will have problems to get a position in such a place. I received such a blackmails.
When I was a student, I was naive. And when I saw the chance to work with Chip Art, he sent me a letter. This is 30 years ago, in fact. Good heavens, I hate to even think that it's 30 years ago. And warning me now that you may find some people put off by an association with me. And I didn't even understand what he was talking about. I thought, I'm just trying, we're just looking for the truth, aren't we? We're just investigating other areas, alternatives. But I found, indeed, that it was not this way, and that there was a great deal of hostility.
In my opinion, even if we are wrong, I'm not saying that we are right or anybody is right. From an observational point of view, we have a very peculiar object. So, and this peculiar object, it deserves some further research. This is what we need, and the interpretations are free and are to be discussed.
Now we're entering the realm of cosmology, and it is here that religion, philosophy, metaphysics, and science all meet. And make no mistake about it, they all play a role in our beliefs. The amount of data that we actually have to support any particular model is small. It's mostly consistency arguments. We can argue that the 3-degree microwave background radiation, yes, it can be explained within a Big Bang context, but I believe Fred Hoyle and Jan Harlecar and Jack Burbidge have suggested an alternate explanation. And I'm sure we could find 10 more if the need were felt. But strangely enough, it's not. You don't get tenure in a university, you don't get promoted, you don't get recognition by looking too much into unpopular areas.
Cosmology is not a science. Has a lot of scientific aspects. We can know many things with the science. We can know how the galaxies are distributed, and this is our measured with the observations. We can know how rich are the metal, how many metals are in the intergalactic medium or in some galaxy, and all these aspects are scientific. But with regard to some considerations about the beginning of the universe, this is in some way crossing the barrier of the science and going to something in between the science and metaphysical speculation, in my opinion.
Sociology is very important in science. People are in groups and gangs and cliques and clusters, and of course that enforces conformity. You want to be one of the boys, one of the dare I say, one of the girls. It's the same after all. And so you tend to think alike. The longer you're together, the more you will think alike. I remember one famous group once, I asked them, how do you resolve disagreements amongst yourselves? And the reply was, we vote. And I thought, what a strange thing to do in science. Vote? I would think the best thing is that all 7 of you disagree. But there's a feeling that creates chaos. And the argument that we need some common thread or road to follow, for the majority to follow, in order to have some kind of organization to the whole scientific enterprise, there is an argument for that. But when it becomes all-encompassing, so that no other possibilities can even be explored, that is not good. And we're there.
Scientific notions take on, they have a lifetime that really is involved in it gets involved with like somebody's job. It gets involved with, my theories are all in this particular, support this area. And so I don't want anybody in my department actually who doesn't work in that. I wouldn't want somebody in my department who is working in a very different side of things, like the steady state Big Banger kind of thing. If you are a steady state person, you're at this point you're feeling a little bit, paranoid anyhow, because most people said, hey, they found, Penzias and whoever he was, Arno Penzias, and the guy found there was the sky wasn't dark. There was a tiny little bit of light.
The cosmology as a science has begun 1 century ago with Einstein's theory. So in 100 years, you cannot produce a theory of everything. This is crazy. Even from a philosophical point of view, historical point of view, we have begun 100 years ago. In 1920, we thought that the Milky Way was all the universe. And now you want to produce the belief that in 80 years or something you have produced the theory of all the universe from the beginning to now. This is somewhat incredible, and not very objective.
The Big Bang is predicated on the assumption that from a point of view of physics there are no surprises in store for us, which is very unlikely.
When you start using words like infinity and perpetual and steady state and all those kind of things, you're really using a vocabulary that was formed here in a quite limited sort of part of the vastness of everything, right? I mean, we developed that vocabulary as a way of finding food, mates, building shelters, that sort of stuff. We didn't develop that vocabulary from vast knowledge or need to know about how the universe works.
We're at the level of where the observations are clear, in my view, but the theory is not. And one of the things that you find in science, and particularly in astronomy, is that people find it very hard to believe in observations if they don't have a theory, if they don't have a theory ready to explain it.
We also need theoreticians. Observations without any theory don't work. And theory without any observations certainly don't work. And the problem is to get them together. We need some glue.
to anybody with an open mind, that should really prove the case that that quasars are associated with galaxies at much ordinary kind of redshifts, while the quasars have higher redshifts. Therefore, they must part of the redshift must be non-cosmological, not to do with the expansion of the universe.
Because I'm always thinking, if we can only be more rigorous, they will believe us. But I was wrong. I was very naive. It's got nothing to do with that.
The rolling of the Big Bang, it's largely been determined by the way people seized upon these ideas, and there's been tremendous amount of propaganda making claims that here we see everything happening and this has to be right.
The people that are in that field treat it like a religion.
And not very objective.
The reaction of the Orthodox astronomers to this idea is that it violates the Big Bang assumption, the Big Bang hypothesis, and therefore it cannot be true.
The amateurs tend to be more broad-minded than the people who have to earn their keep by being narrow-minded. I got it.
Was this worked out by somebody, or was it, did it just happen by chance? Which is really the same thing as saying, did the universe happen by chance? And I have to say, when I look at it, it doesn't look to me at all like chance.